Hello and welcome back to Real Talk with Rayne. I am joined once again with the best boy, Gabe.
Oh, that's me. I'm best boy.
That's true. Today we are going to cover jobs that we've worked that have changed us as people. A nice way to say jobs that we've worked that may or may not be terrible. Not name dropping any jobs, but I'm sure that we can, for those jobs that are a little more common, hint at what kind of jobs they
Oh, I'm gonna be name dropping for
are.
sure.
You're like, and no, I'm gonna spill all the tea. I
Because I have like positive and negative work experiences, so I feel like I should name drop them and just
very true. Then would you like to start us off, then, Gabe?
sure. I'll probably tell my stories like chronologically, but
Yeah, do it. I'm here to listen.
okay. We can switch between stories if you want. But so the worst place, we're gonna start off great with the worst place that I've ever worked. Okay. Have you heard of the place called the Alamo Draft House?
No, I have not.
Okay. So the Alamo Draft House is a concept of a movie theater and a restaurant. So you would be able to watch any kind of movie that is available in any movie theater, as well as be able to order like a burger or nachos or like anything outside of just popcorn that you would usually get at a like an AMC or something like that. So it was a full-on restaurant service on top of being at a movie theater, which is a great concept, very interesting, probably great for the customer. But as working for it was not that great because basically, not only would we be paid as waiters, so we would be paid under minimum wage, but we would also be responsible for cleaning up the theaters, which is not what a server does. So that's fun. But outside of like payment, because I was like in community college at the time. So I had classes like 2 days a week in like little blocks. And those were the only days that I would get off of work was to just to attend class. And then they would be like, okay, so you can do all the other days, right? And I'm like, okay, sure. But the Alamo Draft House in Woodbridge, Virginia, because we're going to expose those, was severely understaffed and completely overworked to the
Mhm.
point where not only were these servers like assigned theater, so I would be assigned like theater four for the entire night, I would also have to be a food runner for other theaters at the same time. So like bigger theaters, I would have to like work on top of and keep in charge of my own tables in my own theater as well. And it got so bad that I literally broke down crying in the middle of the shift. This was like the second job I've ever worked, and I had to go into the family bathroom and cry because I was so stressed out. I was so tired. I only had 2 days off, and that was just to go to class and do classwork. I would get home at 2 a.m. because the theater would close at 11. And it got so bad. Like I like literally left for a break or a lunch to go outside and like to cool off. Like literally one of the managers was like who saw me crying was like, "You do you need to go outside? You can go outside." He was nice. He was a nice man. He was the only good manager there. And he was like on loan or something. But anyway, I literally went outside one of my shifts and I called my mom crying. And I was like, I don't know if I can work this. I don't know if I can do this. This is really stressful. And my mom was just like, leave. You don't have to work. You don't have to work right now. You should focus on school anyway. You should just quit. And I was like, okay, I'll think on it. And then literally that morning, the next morning where I had like another shift, I was like, I called them and I was like, I'm not coming in today. I can't do this anymore. This is stressful. I'm sorry, but I quit. And the server manager was like, are you sure? are you really sure? And I'm like, yeah, a little. And he says, well, can you just take the day off today and think on it and call me tomorrow? Because I had another shift after that, because of course I did. And I was like, okay. So I thought on it for about 2 seconds. And then the next day I called him again. It was like, yeah, I'm not coming in. And he's, oh, okay. And that was it. That was the entire conversation. The next time, like I had to go in to get my check, my final check, and it was a little embarrassing, but I was in and out in under 2 minutes, so it wasn't even that bad. But they were like, "Oh, what are you doing now?" And I'm like, "Nothing,
Not working here. Bye.
not working here. Bye."
See ya. Thanks for paying me.
Yeah, and like obviously, so many server jobs are exactly like that, but that was
Yeah.
like the worst server job that I've had. And I've had other server jobs since then.
Mhm.
So I can say this for a fact, but that Alamo Draft House, specifically in Woodbridge, Virginia, was the worst place I've ever done a serving job at, just because everything was like, everyone was understaffed, everyone was running around. Literally, in my first day, like on my first two training days, I was sweating so bad. I was chugging water. Like, I drank maybe 5 cups of water during my entire 4 hour shift because they just had me running around so much. And I was just sweating and hot and disgusting. And then I still came back to work the next day. So I wasn't even like desperate for money or anything. I was just like, I don't know what I was thinking. I was just like, I guess I should have a job. And that's what I did
You're being
for like,
reliable, huh?
yeah, that was, yeah, we're starting with a great bar of just worst job I've ever had. That one.
I would say for me, the worst job I've ever had was I don't want to name drop just because they're not the company itself, I have mixed feelings about because it was one of the first ABA jobs I had as an ABA therapist. So, if you don't know what ABA is, it's applied behavioral analysis, and it's for majority of the time it's for kiddos on the ASD spectrum, so autism spectrum disorder spectrum. And it's where like a lot of times I worked in early intervention where the kiddos are anywhere from I want to say ages like 0 to 3, where early intervention is the thing, and then they get regular ABA behavior technician stuff at like age 4 and up. Every company was different, but this company was, I believe, the early intervention was 0 to 5 years old. And I had just started working there, and admittedly, a lot of my ABA experience is very similar to a lot of other behavior technicians' experience in ABA because it has a very high turnover rate. Staff are not they're not really taken care of in a lot of the companies that have ABA services, but they expect you to obviously be on your best A game for the clients. However, clients can cancel on you last minute and you don't get paid at all for that session. So if you had one session that day, that was 2 hours, or you go to the house and you hang out and you do programs. So programs could be anything that are like match the colors or working on speech. Can you say dog? And then you would go dog and like try to help them depending on what they needed, depending
Hmm.
on their skill level and the program requirements of what we were implementing. I had this one family that I just got so angry at. Like, I was livid because I don't have kids myself, but I have a very maternal, almost a primal maternal instinct. I don't have kids for multitudes of reasons, but we won't get into that right now. But my dad's a pediatrician, so I grew up watching him take care of little kiddos as well. And I love them. They're the cutest and they're so much fun. And so I loved working with the little kiddos. But there was these parents are always the ones that were the problem when it came. It was never the kids, it's always the parents. And the parents always needed way more training than the kids did. And a lot of old ABA companies that had old values would say that they didn't. But then as soon as you got hired, of course, they would hire you right away because they were desperate for help because people were seeing behind the smoke and mirrors all the time.
Yeah.
And so they would hire you, and then you would really see, like, you'd go into a session with the BCBA, which is the board certified behavioral analysis or behavioral analyst, sorry. Those are the ones that get the master's degree, and then they oversee the behavior technicians. And then you can do a test to get like a registered behavior technician license, but they're separate. So the behavior technicians are ones that don't have the license, and the registered behavior technicians are the ones that do. They're the same thing, except registered behavior technicians are paid, I think, slightly more, and they get different cases. So all of that aside, I did ABA for 5 years off and on because I tried to find different jobs in different companies. This is why a lot of my jobs were like hop 1, 2, 3, 4 into like different companies because I didn't feel comfortable staying in these ABA companies that had values that really just felt wrong to me.
Yeah.
So, what was really the straw that broke the camel's back was I was working with this kiddo, and I believe she was between 4 and 5. And she was so smart. She was amazing. She was so much fun to hang out with. She was just very silly, just full of life. And dad was it makes me so upset thinking about it. So he was like, "Yeah, I need you to cure my daughter." And I was like, "That's not how that works." That's for one, what? And for two, huh?
Yeah.
Like, I haven't been diagnosed as on the spectrum, but I'm pretty sure I am somewhere on the spectrum, just undiagnosed. And I'm pretty sure my therapist is pretty sure as well, but she's not authorized to diagnose me. But no, it made me so mad because she tried so hard, and he would treat it as if the autism was like a disease that could
Oh my
be
God.
cured. And I want her to be, he literally said, I want her to be normal and be in the normal classes. And I was like, I literally, can you excuse me for a minute? And walked out of the room. And you can hear how heightened I'm getting right now because it makes me so mad when I
Yeah.
think about this man. I don't know. I try not to think people are malicious on purpose. I don't think he meant it that way. I'm sure he loves his child. Eh. Okay. So I texted the BCBA, my supervisor, and I was like letting them know what he was saying. And I was like, I'm getting really uncomfortable. And they were like, just try to push through the rest of the session. And I was like, okay. So I try to push through the rest of the session. And we're sitting down for it was like lunch or snack time. It was a while ago, so I don't remember exactly what time it was, but she was sitting down to eat, and dad had a cup of juice, and he was holding it out in front of her, and he was saying, "Tell me juice." And she was saying ju ju ju, but she wasn't getting the ts part.
Yeah.
So he kept holding it in front of her until she said juice. And then as soon as she got it, he was like, "Okay, say it again."
Oh my God.
And he made her say it like 6 times, and she started like getting really frustrated and crying. And I was like, "She already said it."
Yeah.
And like part of me was also like, "What are you doing? In your role as a BT, you cannot overstep and tell the parent what to do. You can model it for them by saying or like showing them, but it's very specific in ABA. Like you can't be like, oh, you can't do that, or oh, that's not how you do it. That's for the BCBA to do because they train the parents."
Yeah.
And so it's so frustrating just sitting there. I'm like stewing and like just watching this. And it's making me so upset that at one point I was like, you could just give it to her. Like,
Yeah.
in just like the nicest voice I could. Just but she's close enough. Like she didn't say juice like multiple times, but she got so close. And at one point but I want her to be able to say it right. I want her to be able to say the words so that she could be in normal classes. I'm like, can you stop saying that for the
Right.
my God? Like, and so she finally gets the drink that she's asking for, and she's just not interested anymore. He's, oh, now you don't want it? I'm like, if you drilled me to say juice 8 times before I could drink because I'm thirsty, I wouldn't want it either, just to spite you. Like,
Yeah.
I'm with you, girl. Like, I was pissed. So I just felt really uncomfortable and really upset. And unfortunately, it's like you get a degree in human services. Like, these are the kinds of jobs that you work.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have way more. I have so many ABA stories I could tell, but it's just going to put me in a bad mood. So I'll start with this one and probably end with this one with ABA unless something else comes to my mind later. But this
Yeah.
ABA one was like it grinded my gears for
No, I
the
can't.
rest of my professional career. I was sitting there. I don't want to go as far as to call this abuse, but uh,
It's
and
definitely not
then
good.
right, and then at the same time, I'm getting ready, and this is I'm getting heated, like shaking. I'm so mad thinking about this. And also, not it wasn't just dad, but it was mom too. And like when she would sit down to do an activity with mom, and again, I only worked with her like a couple times and I saw this behavior from the parents. I hadn't built rapport with her yet. It was like the first week of working with this kiddo. And mom, like when she was trying to play a game with the little girl got upset and mom would smack her hand and she would start crying. And I was like, I have a family emergency. I need to go. I need to go. And so I left very shaken, just like I am now. And of course it's not as violent as it could be, but I'm like, you're doing that in front of me though. What are you doing when I'm not here?
Yeah.
I don't want to think that way. I don't want to spiral and catastrophize it because I don't know. I don't
Mhm.
see them when I'm not there, but it just, as somebody who had similar treatment growing up as well, it hit a nerve with me
Yeah.
as well. And so when I told my supervisor, they were like, unfortunately, we can't report that because that's not really considered like abuse. That's not really considered XYZ. And I was like, I do not feel comfortable going in this home anymore.
No, I wouldn't either.
Yeah, I'm like, I cannot do this. I don't feel right. And I think somebody, namely you, supervisor, you need to go in there and work with the parents more
Yeah.
because they clearly don't understand how autism works. They don't understand their child and they have very unrealistic expectations of thinking that a behavior therapist is going to come in and beat it out of your child. Like, it's not going to
Yeah.
happen. And they even, I swear to God, were like, our program doesn't do that, but there are some programs. And I was like, what? Excuse me? I'm sorry. This is my 1 day notice. I gotta go. I quit and I was out.
Yeah.
I was outie. I was like, no, because ABA can do such wonderful things for people, but it also can really hurt if it's wrong, if it's done the wrong way. I've had a lot of people tell me that they had ABA as a kid or they have
Mhm.
siblings that had ABA as a kid. And when I had mentioned, like, I had a college class, I had mentioned that I had been an ABA therapist and they like hated me just because I was an ABA therapist for a while
Oh my god.
and saying ABA is dog training for kids. And I'm like, I can't believe people that it's so bad that it's gotten that reputation because essentially a lot of places will like, oh, if you get 5, you get like a cookie or
Yeah.
something, or we're going to work for this. So sometimes it comes across that way to people for sure. I do think that sometimes the way that programs are implemented can really help. Potty training, if they go to the bathroom all by themselves, you're like, oh my God, yes, we're going to party. We're going to have cookies. We're going to have a pizza party. We're going to do whatever you want. We watch SpongeBob. Like, there was one kid that loved Gummy Bear, and he played it on repeat, but like 500 different versions of it overlapping at the same time, just
Oh my
nonstop. And I
God.
was like, I need to go home. This is like a kind of torture, I feel like. But it, after that, I was just like, I don't have the heart for this anymore. It's not consistent work, one. And two, you deal with these parents that are like, fix it. I'm like,
Yeah.
there's nothing to be fixed. Okay? That's not why we're here. It's not a fixable thing. It's a different way of thinking. The brain is wired differently. That's not something that's bad. It's not curable. You just need to learn how to be less of an insufferable asshole about it
Yeah.
and learn how to communicate with your child who just thinks differently than you do. God forbid people grow up having different thoughts and opinions and have different processing times or different skill levels than others. Like, we're all unique and different because that's the beauty of being unique and different. If we were all meant to just be the same, we would all be the same. We'd be robots.
Exactly.
But no. And it's so that frustrated me so much and really upset me to the point where it was that plus not caring about the staff, not having good enough support in terms of like you couldn't make a full-time job out of that because if somebody canceled, screw you, you just lost. They'd be like $28 an hour, but you'd
Mhm.
only get 6 hours a day because it'd be like 2 hours with each client and then driving. And if somebody canceled, that sucks. Not everywhere paid 28, but a lot of places did because they thought that it would bring more people in.
Yeah.
And it did until people were like, okay, but this is literally like a bait and switch kind of thing.
Yep.
So quench my thirst because I was getting heated. Uh, I have my tea and I'm sipping it. It's cold tea, but it's still good. But yeah, that for me was like, I just can't with.
Yeah.
I love that ABA is trying to be better and that the community itself, they're trying to be, there are good ABA companies out there. There was one that I worked for, absolutely loved them. They were the best. They had all of the right ethics in place, but they didn't have security for the staff. So that is why
Yeah.
it grew. So, not to say there aren't good companies, there's not good people that are in ABA, but it's heavily outweighed and outnumbered by places that are just like, it's become such a common diagnosis in the world that it's, oh, we're just going to make a company
Yeah.
and just figure it out as we go. And it's like, some people really shouldn't, even if they have the qualifications, they should do more research.
Yeah. For
No.
sure.
So the only other one I can think of is it was very brief. I worked there for a couple days because the BCBA that I worked was also the owner of the company, which is a very new company. And she didn't tell me anything about the client that we were going to go see. The client was 16. She was nonverbal and she had a lot of behaviors that were violent. And this girl is like tall. She's like tall as hell. She's strong. She's a strong girl. I basically literally got my hair like she out of nowhere just was overstimulated. I think she was just having a moment and she like put her hands through my hair and grabbed them like at the root
Oh my God.
by the fistful and just would not let go. This is the first time I'm meeting this client within the hour I'm there.
Holy shit.
And I just had to sit there calmly while my boss was like trying to pry her off of me. It's
Yeah.
not her fault. She didn't understand that she was doing anything bad. But it's like, you need to warn somebody. She's,
Yep.
oh yeah, that's happened with a few people. I'm like, what do you, what do you, what do you mean? She's like, she gets overstimulated with new people. I'm like, wouldn't that be something you would tell somebody before they go
Yeah.
into the home? And then this lady had the nerve to ask me, so do you feel comfortable going by yourself tomorrow?
No.
No, no, I do not. No, I do not. If I'm going to get attacked by a giant 16-year-old who's going to pull my hair out of my head, no, no, I'm not comfortable going by myself. What the hell?
That's insane.
Yeah. So left that job, another ABA job that didn't last long. But again, it's things like that where ABA has such potential to be a great career for people, but all of these experiences that people have are like, it's not sustainable, and people are not taking the right they're not taking the right steps to actually make an ABA company that's worth anything. And the ones that are have wait lists that are like 2 years long for kiddos to even get services.
Yep.
So it's just really frustrating. That's end rant, but that's my main frustration with the jobs that I've worked and why it was so difficult. Like when I was doing RSP, I was doing a lot of ABA,
Yeah.
and that inconsistency was just not helpful. So all in all, it was all a learning experience, but it just was too much, and
Mhm.
don't think I'd ever go back to that ever, honestly.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame you. And that's like another thing is that I've learned is like because I've had so many different jobs in so many different sectors, it's you
Yeah.
figure out what you are okay with doing. Like I
Right.
can't do food service unless the management team is literally really nice to me and very
Yeah.
caring. But I feel like I'm okay with stocking and retail and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's not
Um,
bad.
no, it's not that bad. But it is bad transition. If it's an overnight shift, I found out because I used to work as a overnight stalker at Walmart, local to me, so I won't say where it is, obviously. But it was the job that basically allowed me to move to the state that I'm in now, which is a red state. For those of obviously no one else will know but you. But so the state I live in is very red, and as I mentioned in the last episode, I am trans. I am queer. And at first, I was very concerned about other people knowing that I was trans because you've heard all this stuff about red states. Red states are usually the loudest when it comes to being against LGBT plus people and queer people. But because I am passing as a man and my but because a lot of my documents are still female sex, when I applied to the Walmart position and it asked me what gender I was on the application, I put prefer not to say because
Okay.
it's none of their business. I don't
Yeah.
think they should know anyway. But apparently that is for everyone who else out there, this is important to know, especially if you're queer. That is apparently a almost a it's not a red flag, but it's almost like a dog whistle. It's a dog whistle for management to be like, oh, this person is queer. And the reason why I know that is because while I was doing orientation, the HR person of Walmart, I think they have a different name, but basically HR pulled me aside and was just like, by the way, what are your pronouns? And I'm like, oh, it's he, him. And he's like, okay, I wasn't sure because you said prefer not to say on the application. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, whatever. I don't care if HR knows that
Make
I'm
your
trans.
applications better.
No, that's the thing with like job applications is they have a lot of little dog whistles like that. But apparently that was one of them. So always go for the one with that you're passing as. But anyway,
Yeah.
so I think it ends at HR. Only HR knows. They're the only one who should know. And I didn't find out until I was maybe 3 months, almost two, no, yeah, 2 months into this job that multiple people knew that I was transgender. And I
Mhm.
did not come out to them. I did not tell anyone else. And the reason, so there was a manager there. Her name was Candace, and she is lesbian. She's a lesbian and she has a wife. And the HR manager went to her and told her hey, this guy is trans. I want you to look out for him in case something happens, that kind of stuff. Because I guess that's what HR does is tell the other queer people that there's queer
Oh,
people around.
since you relate, can you be the bodyguard? Are you serious right
For real. And the thing is, she didn't even tell me that that happened. The way I found out was through a friend, a coworker of mine that I gotten close with. His name was Brian. He's a great man, has a wife and two kids. He's a great guy. He like pulled me aside while we were in the back putting all the leftover stock away, and he was like, "Hey, I just want you to know that I know that you're trans and that I don't think that you're weird or anything and that I got your back. I think you're actually a really cool dude. I think you're probably the coolest guy here. And you got my support. I think you're awesome." And I'm like at first I'm like touched because I'm just like, wow, I'm a cool guy. That's so awesome.
now?
And then the first thing I asked him is, who told you? And he was like, Candace told me.
We
And
were believing in you, Candace!
no, for real.
Faith in
And it
you.
wasn't just Candace who knew. Apparently, all the other managers that work overnight knew as
It's
well. I
not
don't
even.
know through her or through HR or whatever, but all of upper management knew,
Oh
who
my.
then told Brian,
God.
and Brian apologized for this because he didn't think about it until he saw my reaction to basically everyone knowing that I was trans. But he told another coworker, Isaac, who I'm still friends with. He's probably the only friend that I kept after I left that job. And he was telling Isaac that I was trans, and Isaac was the one who encouraged Brian to let me know that other people knew.
Yeah.
Um,
But still,
and
it's like, it's none of their business.
no, it's none of their goddamn business. And I felt so violated, but at the same time, I had to give them the grace of, remember, this is a red state. I am probably one of the few trans people that they know that is completely transitioned and completely masculine but it still felt so concerning because
Yeah.
now I would look at all my coworkers and I would be like, I don't know who knows. I don't know who knows this big secret about me or this big like this huge part of my identity.
Shouldn't
And
even
it's
be a secret. Like, it should just be who you are, and it shouldn't
yeah,
have to be like a topic of conversation. Like,
really, it
ugh.
really like it was, yeah, it was, and it was that was like probably like the biggest thing that happened to me while working there. But upside, there was a trans man who worked on the shift before my shift. So like on shift 2, we were shift 3. And he and his coworker friend, they saw me like pulling down boxes from a pallet to put up in Bath and Body, and he was like, "Hey, sorry this is a weird question. Where'd you get your top surgery?" And we like it was like, "Okay, I guess
Okay.
I'm just the trans guy everyone comes to now because apparently I'm
Jeez.
out." So, like I told him obviously I like, "Oh, I got it at a hospital in DC and it was a blah blah blah." And we talked hormones and all that stuff. And but it was still like so daunting cuz it was like, because that wasn't even the only question I was asked from. It wasn't even from the trans man. It was from his cis. I'm assuming cis. She was presenting feminine, and but basically his coworker friend was like, "By the way, how do you feel about bottom surgery?" And I'm like, "You don't ask that."
No.
And I was like, "I don't want it personally,"
Yeah. Like, even so,
but
it's no, it's just, I don't know. Those kinds of questions, I feel like you don't ask people unless you're like really close with them.
yeah, it was crazy to be so exposed. Especially because it was like, again, the job that got me to move to this red state. I didn't know what the culture was. I didn't know anything like that. But it was again both very daunting, but also a little reassuring because it was just like, oh, okay. So they're not gonna pull me up by my toes because I'm trans. They're just gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna ask you questions that are a little uncomfortable, but
Yeah.
you're the only person I can ask. It's just
Yeah.
like one of those things where it's, I'm giving you grace, but at the same time, it's, oh my God, why would you do that?
Yeah. It's I just I understand like obviously it's like giving them grace and like I can understand that people might be coming from a place of genuine curiosity and not meaning any harm by it. But I wouldn't ask any questions like that. Like one of my two of my besties are actually trans. One I've been friends with for over 5 years in person. We hang out almost every single day, and I still don't ask those kinds of questions. Like, I had once when we were, like, on the topic of conversation, and we were like, it was in the topic of we had little cards that we were pulling out to get to know each other, and it was me,
Yeah,
my wife, and her, and it was all questions about, like, insecurities and goals and things like that because it's just a nice group activity to do at night when you're hanging out after a long work week. And I think the topic came up and we discussed it, but it wasn't like a I had to know it, but it's for me like it was coming from a place of I don't have this experience, so I'm not going to pretend like I know,
yeah,
and I'm not going to pretend like anything makes sense to me because it's not my lived experience. So I'm asking you because you have the lived experience and I want to respect you and see where you come from and what makes you feel more comfortable and in the best way that I can understand, not being in your situation and in your lived experience, asking these questions and because it's a curiosity. But
yep,
that doesn't come up until it's like you've known this person for a long time, you've had deep conversations. Like these are deep questions to
yeah,
ask somebody that you really need to have rapport and like a hugely deep trust of each
yeah.
other to have those kinds of conversations. And like my other friend who we've been friends for over a decade, we only talked about that probably recently again and during very intimate and deep conversations when I would talk about things that I'm secure about or things that we've gone through and those kinds of conversations that you have organically with friends to help you grow closer. And understand that. But just like casually, no,
Yeah,
no, thank you.
yeah.
Not a topic for you. Sorry. You're at this package. You need to be like at this
Hmm.
premium package before you can ask me those questions.
Yeah. I will say it's been a good experience for me finding work here in this red state as a trans person whose preferred name does not look anything like what's on my government papers.
Yeah.
Because in the job that I currently have, for about, I want to say like a good month or two, I was going by my government name, which isn't what I consider my dead name to be. So I wasn't like that upset about it. But then I realized, hey, I'm probably going to be at this job for a long time and I don't want to be called my government name all the time. So I gathered the courage because this was, again, months in, and I was getting to know my manager and I really trusted her. And so I pulled her aside and I was like, hey, I am trans. I go by a different name. Is there any way that I can get even just like my name changed on my name tag or on my business cards? And she was like, yeah, sure, for sure. And she was like, I'm going to go talk to HR. I'm going to go tell our executive director and we're going to get this figured out. And no one has ever batted an eye at the fact that 3 months in, my name is now Gabe. No one asked me questions about it. No one assumed anything. If anything, they were just like, oh my God, this is so easier than your government name. We'll call you Gabe forever. Because my government name is like super Irish and Gaelic. So it's like vowels and consonants, and no one can pronounce it right. But that was the most heartwarming experience I've ever had as a trans person in the work environment. And I am very grateful that I have a great manager and great management and like a great person in HR that and IT as well, because they had to change my name in like the system. But the way that they were just like, oh yeah, for sure, is a little mind-boggling to me because I'm like, because I don't want to say conditioned, but I've been under the assumption because I was raised in a very blue state that red states are not necessarily full of bigots, but very bigotry leaning or very easy to assume the worst of somebody. And that really opened my eyes to the fact of no, sometimes there's just people, and those people can be kind no matter where you are in a red state or a blue state. And yeah, that was just like it's been very I've been very fortunate that I've been working for companies here and they have never made me feel bad or scared for being queer.
Yeah. I'm glad that they've been supportive, and obviously not everybody is the same, but it's still
Mhm.
there's a lot of fear, I feel like that, especially right now. Not getting into details of that, but especially right now in the queer community, like who's on our side and who's not, and who can we trust and who we feel safe with. And it's nice to hear that, like, even in a stereotypically not progressive political party, that
Yep.
some people are trying or either still allies or trying to become allies. There are some people like my family. Oh my God, red. Very, it's bad to the point where we just don't talk about politics at all
Mhm.
because it's too much. And
Yep.
we can sometimes have talks about certain topics, but not necessarily like the overarching view of the party. So it's
Yeah.
like they used to be much more opinionated and harsh on things like when they were still learning to be more accepting of me and learning that it's not like a death sentence to be queer and
Mhm.
Lebanese. I can still believe in God. I can still do anything that I want to do. And it's just, but for them, a lot of the stress comes from arguing over the state of the country and who's running it and how that affects people in their family that they love. And they may not agree with it, they may not fully understand it, but they want a relationship with me and they want that relationship not to be tarnished. In the past, there's been a lot of really bad like arguments and just tension, things like that, and butting heads. So I think over the years, the conversations have become more organic and they've become more mature on both ends. Like I definitely have not had mature conversations with them as well. It's not all on their side. But it's really it depends on the people who and how much they value you, how much they're willing to compromise and work on it. And you don't have to agree on everything to be friends. Like you I know that some people go to extremes of if I have somebody who is voting red, like I'm never going to talk to them again. I'm like, I can't really do that with my family. I could,
Yeah.
but they haven't in a way I can understand. So I really it's hard for me to have conversations about this too because it's I understand both sides. I
Yeah.
understand the idea of I'm never going to talk to you again because your decision is impacting my life in a way.
Mhm.
At the same time, it is and it isn't. Like what one person does is not the choice of another person. So we're all separate individuals with our own choices. And people who, for example, my family who voted red, don't agree with everything
Yeah.
that is happening. and originally voted red because they didn't think things like that would happen.
Yeah.
And now they are. And so when I've brought it up to my dad, he's mainly just been like, I just want to make sure you're okay. I just want to make sure you're safe, that you and Amanda are safe. And it doesn't need to be a screaming match. It doesn't need to be a fight.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't need to be full of negativity. It could just be like, I'm upset that you made this choice. And I hope that by seeing the results of your actions, you can understand and grow from that decision. Thankfully, there will be no third chance. But to me, it's just as I get older and I think more about life experiences, I try to not think of things as such black and white as you're evil, you're good. People are all inherently flawed and all have good and bad in them.
Yeah.
So there's not one person that's like perfectly good or perfectly evil. And I think it all comes down to experience and life lessons that we learn that the universe sends to us. And maybe they'll still vote red, but maybe the next person that is red won't have those same ideals and won't have such aggressive and like concerning thoughts of things. Like it depends on the person. And I think that we as a society have been through so much that we automatically catastrophize everything that happens. But at the same time, on the opposite side of the coin, we do need to be concerned about the things that are actively being put into place that affect us. And the people that helped put those things into place by voting for how they did need to recognize that. And they need to
Yeah.
recognize that the thoughts and feelings of the people that are affected are just as valid. Doesn't mean anybody needs to be like attacked or swarmed with hate, but it just
Mhm.
that people need to look at the reality of the situation and
Yeah.
be compassionate towards one another. But society's a long ways from that, I think, on every front, not just one party or whatever. It's as a whole, I think society has a lot of growing to do and compassion to and empathy to relearn for us to ever get to a point of peace at all, ever. But yeah, I'm concerned. Obviously, I did not vote red, neither did my wife. And I typically don't get involved in politics because I also don't understand them. So I try not to
Mhm.
involved in things that I don't understand on an educational level. I myself grew up with a learning disability, so sometimes it takes me a while to really learn what something means and like really understand the concept. In most of my 20s, I don't know if I didn't vote every year. I think I voted occasionally, but I really was like, I don't understand this, so I don't want to make the wrong move.
Yeah.
But now as I'm older, I'm like, okay, I understand. Like I will look into it a little bit more and see what people are talking about, but then it goes back into this is a job too. And this is probably a job that the people in the past have had that has been very stressful for them too, running an
Yeah.
entire country. But I guess people need to be at a place in their lives where they're willing to listen without judgment and willing to hear everybody, have those conversations, even if you don't agree on something, that it doesn't need to come down to hate. It doesn't need to come down to malice. And that happens a lot in work too, I think. Disagreements with your boss or coworker can
Yeah.
easily be resolved just by talking to them if they're receptive. But if they're not receptive and you are, that's a moot point. How much are you going to try to have a conversation with somebody who is convinced to be against you and only has one thought in their mind that they're right and there's nothing else in their world but them being right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a lot of jobs can teach you quite a bit about yourself and about your environment and the world as it is. And the world as it is a pretty scary place, which is one of the reasons I'm unsure about having children, just to be completely honest.
Yeah.
And I don't really know. I don't know at what point. things will get better. I don't really know, but I know that in order to at least make the right steps, there has to be more compassion. There has to be more empathy for each other, no
Yep.
matter what we think. There shouldn't be hate based on religion. There shouldn't be hate based on race. There shouldn't be hate based on how you identify. It just should be, I don't understand it, but that doesn't mean I'm going to hate on you for it
Yeah.
because that just creates more problems and more negative energy in the world that we don't need. Like, we don't need any more. We have plenty right now. Like, the world is imploding as we know it, and people are just taking that as an excuse to just go hard and on hatred, and it's sad to see, but I can also understand how people are very hurt, and I try to see, I don't know if it's devil's advocate, but it's more like I'm trying in my life to see things as more of like from a compassionate
Mm.
side of things. And I don't like that. I don't agree with that. I don't agree that my family voted red. I really don't like that. I'm scared for what that means for myself and my wife and my family. I'm not going to then be like, I hate you, like you're
Hmm.
dead to me, because in a way, like it's just they didn't do the actions that are being performed right now. It's a result of their choice, but it wasn't only them. It's a big group effort. So you can't penalize people that just because they were a part of that. I think it's difficult and it goes into like those ethics a little bit. What's the right step to take when you have conversations like this? And what's the appropriate outlook on something where does this deserve the negative energy that I'm going to give it? Does this deserve me breaking the ties? Obviously, if the people that you're talking to are being really terrible towards you and nasty, and that's a good reason to break ties regardless. I can understand where each side comes from. I can understand on my side, like how I feel. And then I can also understand that I don't fully know what other people are thinking and I can't claim to.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, this is like the philosophical part of me, but like at the end of the day, when we all leave the earth, like none of it's going to matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I believe that we become energy and we're chilling. It's not going to, these little arguments over things are not, they may not matter. I don't know. I went on a little bit of a rant.
No, I think that was a good rant to have that we
Are
could
you just
probably.
saying that?
No, because the thing is, I don't want to get too off topic, but like
Oh my
we could
God. We're
put a
always
pin
going to
in
get off
it.
topic. Real talk with Rayne. Always off topic.
We'll put a pin in it and we'll revisit on a future
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah.
Because I have a very similar opinion of just because I did make the tough choice of distancing myself from certain family members because of how they voted, and
Yeah.
also just because of the attitude they have vote. But again, that's a if you want to hear that fun story, you should subscribe to you should
Subscribe to my
subscribe to
channel.
a for a future episode.
Yes.
And support our Patreon.
Yeah. I'll
So
link
we
it in
can
the
do this
bio.
properly. Probably not good to have that part way through the episode, but okay.
Good. We'll know who has actually stayed here long enough.
If you have, comment down below what you do with your family that vote red.
Yeah. How you handle that, because it would be interesting to see other opinions, and having an actual constructive conversation is also, I love having constructive conversations about hard topics, because
Yeah.
when you can have adult conversations that are constructive and it's not like one side's getting upset or taking it personally, you really can have these long, good
Mhm.
conversations with people. It doesn't mean that you agree, it just means you're having a conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
We lost that ability. This is like a little bit back to the internet podcast, but when the internet kind of starts taking over the world, people lose almost like that ability to have constructive conversation without putting all of your emotions in it and just looking at it for what it is rather
Yep.
than taking it as just because somebody has this thought, that means they also think this. No, because they didn't say that they thought that. They just like we're focusing at the task at hand and the topic at hand. And going back to the jobs, having crappy jobs, again, it's that happens at work all the time where you don't want to be in
Hmm.
a job because you can't communicate with people who aren't willing to have a constructive conversation with you. It's just, oh, you didn't do this right. I don't care what your excuse is, whatever, especially with bosses. If you
Yeah.
can't have a constructive conversation with your boss, like you're not going to be happy in your workplace. You're not going to feel like you're being guided or you're being led in the right direction. And that's not a good workplace to be in. If you're not actively learning and checking in with the people that are
Hmm.
supposed to be supervising and guiding you, then that alone is a sign that something needs to change or that's not the right role for you.
Yeah. And I will add on to that just a little
Yeah,
bit. It's
please
like,
do.
because
Give me
for
a break from
me,
talking.
that's fine. Because I was going to bring up, I was trying to think of like art jobs that I've had that were like, oh, terrible. But the thing is, none of the art jobs that I've had were necessarily bad because the management was good. Like we had good directors, we had good people checking in on other people to make sure that work is getting done or for updates and stuff. It was just the other people on the project that would sometimes not pull their weight. And I understand that in a lot of because a lot of the art jobs that I worked on were either just for the experience, honestly, just to build my portfolio. So it was like technically free labor that was my choice that I decided to do, or severely, not severely, but definitely like under what would be affordable to live off of, because that's just how art is. A lot of people can't afford 500 drawings and also expect it to be done in a timely fashion. But yeah, sometimes on those projects, there will be people who don't understand the nuances of the job a little bit. And I'm not trying to blame them because a lot of them were either this was back when I was a minor, so it would be like other minors, or it would be like in the like adult spaces, it would just be like younger adults who didn't really understand that, hey, you asked to be a part of this project. You don't have to do this. You don't have to work for peanuts, as they say. Like you, and I'm not saying that artists shouldn't be paid what they're worth. They absolutely should. I definitely do want to be paid what I'm worth. But in some cases, especially when you are doing indie related projects, you're going to be doing a lot of work for sometimes nothing. And that's the choice you make is because no one held a gun to my head and said, hey, do an animatic of this scene completely for free. And but in that same kind of vein, you can't expect people to do that work for free.
Yeah.
But also, if you're not going to do it, say something because you're being an asshole by
Right.
being like, "Oh yeah, no, I'll do it," and then ghost the
Yeah.
project for 6 or 7 months, and everyone's okay. I guess the project's dead now, and then that's why we have so many dead indie projects that don't even get an episode or don't even get a concept because it's like being a creative is hard. Like it's not it's this is we've talked about this a little bit, but you have to be so passionate about what you're doing as a creative that you have to work on top of working. You have to have a job that pays the bills and then you got to work on top of that in order to get to the place where you can be creative all the time. And I think that's a job that a lot of people either don't realize or they don't think about is the fact that like you have to put in so much more work to get an audience, to draw, to write, to direct, to voice act. You got to put in a lot of extra work on top of a 9 to 5 or a 40-hour work week, whatever the instance is. And a lot of people can't do that at the same time, which is frustrating, which is very upsetting for a lot of people. Like myself included, I do struggle sometimes balancing my regular day job and my job as an artist because sometimes I get home and all I want to do is just sit down and watch YouTube for the 3, 4 hours that I have before I have to go to bed. And I've been policing myself a little bit to work during those hours that I have for free, that I have free before I have to go to bed, not just to satisfy a client, but to satisfy myself and build up that work ethic because it will pay off in the end. Because if I do creative projects, that could become my job if I
Yeah,
continue to push through it, if I continue to put eggs in that basket. So, yeah.
absolutely. And yeah, I think, at least my closing thoughts would be, it's all about communication. It all comes down to communication, which is like the center of everything is
Mhm.
if you don't want to work for the rate that's offered, say that. And then obviously it's in the other person's court. If they want to be a jerk about it, then that's their decision. And then you just
Yeah.
know not to work for that person. If there's a way to negotiate it, you can negotiate it. If there's people in the world that obviously there are some shady people, there are people who are pulling like really nasty tricks on other people just because I don't know why they do it, but they do. They don't communicate because they're like, I don't want to communicate because this is just what I'm doing to like entertain myself or to
Yep.
do something just for me. And that selfishness is going to come back and bite them eventually. But the people that do, at least the ones that I've worked for, like I worked for a company for 3 years as a voice actress, and I'm still upset with the way that things ended because I feel like they didn't do it in a very proper way. It's
Mm.
been a way that I could talk about later on. But I still wouldn't say like they're a bad company. I wouldn't be like bad mouthing them or anything like that. I would just be like, it didn't work out. And I definitely got paid like a decent amount. It wasn't as much as I would have liked to have gotten paid, especially with how big my role was.
Yep.
But when having those conversations, it was always very constructive. It was always like, this is, what I'm proposing. What do you think? Give me feedback. And it's a back and forth. It's not one sided. When it's one sided, that's when issues come in. When people can't have actual mature conversations about what they need versus
Hmm.
what that project or that job needs. If it's not a match, it's not a match. And it doesn't make anybody a bad person. It just means it's not a match.
Yeah.
Somebody else might be perfect for that role and you just need to talk to them. If you're not perfect for that role, that doesn't mean that it's never going to happen for you. It just means it's not the right role for you. It's
Yeah.
really that simple. So, a lot of indie projects that are so good end up stopping because of lack of communication, a lack of awareness, and not being able to have constructive and also empathetic conversations
Yeah.
with each
Yeah.
other. So that's my takeaways is obviously that communication is the hub for everything when it comes to
Hmm.
job related work, whether it's creative outlets or 9 to 5s or full time, part time, per diem, whatever it is. There has to be some level of communication there, or things are always going to get lost in translation, and then it just gets muddled from there. It creates more problems that clear communication at the start would have avoided.
Exactly.
So But yeah, people make mistakes, and if they learn from them, then that's great. If they don't, then that's on them. Things will happen for them how they happen for them. We never really know what anybody else is going through. And we can only try to be kind and give people grace because you don't know what they're going through. You don't know what they have been through, and you don't know what's going on that day for them. Trying to approach every situation with grace and an open mind would really benefit our society if we started practicing that more.
Yep, I agree 100%.
Perfect. So I think, do you have any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
I guess my closing thoughts are just echoing what you said. Communication is important, especially in a job environment between coworkers, between management. If you don't have an open line of communication and you can't make it yourself, that job is probably not for you. You can hopefully find somewhere better to work. Just know that like everyone goes through shitty jobs. Just because you're in a shitty job right now does not mean that you're going to be stuck there forever. And you're great. You're wonderful. You're doing the best you can. And I hope someone gives you some grace today if you're having a bad day or you're overworked and you're really tired. Yeah, you're doing your best. You're doing great. And we're going to survive the world that is today together.
Yes, absolutely. I'd like to thank all of our listeners for joining us today. And like I said, actually, like Gabe said prior, I have a Patreon. So I will link that in the bio. And then you can also, there should be links. I don't know how podcast works. They're still new to me, but there should be links to other places that you can listen to this podcast and other places where you can find me and my work. And then, Gabe, would you like to shout yourself out at all if you're comfortable?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have a YouTube channel. There's nothing on it right now. I'm working on a video. But it's Astra_Nights with a K. If you want to just check it out to see if anything, if you like watching artwork, if you like to hear my voice, you like hearing me talk, go ahead and subscribe because you're probably going to get an odd video every blue moon. But you know what? It's cool. It's fun. And I draw sometimes. Don't post a lot. I should probably do that too.
It's
You see where
quality
this
over
is.
quantity. It's fine.
It is. But yeah, my handle, Astra_Nights, pretty much on anything. You could probably find me there. I may have posted something, I may have not, but you can look anyway.
All right. We will be back in a little bit, probably in a couple weeks or so, with another podcast. So thank you guys for listening and make sure that you are kind to yourself and others. Do something good for yourself today and drink water. It's very important. Okay, bye.
Bye.